Solo is out in theaters, which means we can give our spoiler thoughts on the movie, which we're going to do right now on Screen Junkies News. Hello, I'm Dan Murrell, joined by
Billy Business.
Billy Biz in the house talking Solo. So, Billy, this is going to serve as both our review of the movie and our spoiler review. We decided to mash them all up into one because it's kind of hard. It's a little difficult to talk about this movie without going into more of the thoughts about how they use the characters, what they do with the story, and also because neither one of us saw it till last night.
Right.
Thursday night.
Let's be real.
Let's be real, which is also part of it. General thoughts. I know that we've kind of we're a little bit on opposite sides of this, which is what I like. I like having a nice discussion. Just going into the basics of it, it wasn't as bad as I thought it might be, in the sense that like I found it generally okay. Forgettable would be the word. Like I was kind of watching it and like I'm forgetting this as I'm watching it, which is new to me because every Star Wars movie that's come out I've remembered for some reason. Sure. Some of them because I intensely disliked them, some of them because I loved them, and some of them because both were in the same movie. Yeah. This one just felt very bland to me. I felt like it was a pleasant impersonation of characters that we know from the Star Wars franchise and just some references. But I think if you took the Solo name off of it, it was a pretty forgettable second-rate space adventure that probably wouldn't have done. I mean, I'm being serious. If you take what people love, I thought it coasted a lot on the love that people have for Han Solo, on the love that people have for Lando Calrissian. I didn't love Alden Ehrenreich and Donald Glover so much as it reminded me how much I loved Harrison Ford and Billy D. Williams. I thought that they were both doing pretty genial impressions of characters that we already love. And that was their defining character trait. I am that character that you know. It didn't add a lot to the mythos for me. There's some things that we'll get into that were a little more annoying to me than others, and there were some things that I enjoyed a lot. Sure. But I know that we're kind of on opposite sides of the spectrum here.
Yeah, I think... I feel like this movie's always going to be compared to Rogue One, unfairly or not, for the rest of its days. I walked out of Rogue One very aggravated, very upset. I was definitely in the minority. I felt like Rogue One kind of recontextualized a lot of things from A New Hope that I wasn't comfortable with. Whereas Han Solo, yes, we've been following the behind-the-scenes drama for so long. I was like, there's no way this movie's going to be anything but garbage. The first 10 minutes, I was like, oh no, like I'm in for another.
Yeah. Well, this is the spoiler review, so we can go into it. The getting his name scene, I thought, if this is the whole movie, then we are in big trouble, because that was the laziest, dumbest
It was the worst. I literally looked over my friend. I was like, oh no, like this is as bad as I thought. And then like the weird bug lady who has the same name as someone from Infinity War.
Oh, that's right. Lady Proxima. I thought Proxima sounded familiar.
Yeah, they love that Proxima at Disney. I was just like, oh no. But then for whatever reason, something happened where I just kind of let go. Maybe that first 10 minutes was good because I was like, whatever, this is happening to me. I let go and I had a really good time. I ended up not trying to look for, as like, okay, would Harrison Ford kind of say that? I just let this kid be this kid. I actually really ended up liking it. I liked all the characters. There was some real cool deep cut Easter eggs in this, like real deep cuts. I really loved. They made a reference to Aura Singh, the bounty hunter who you can see briefly in Phantom Menace and is in a ton of the lore. Terrace Kasi, which is like an old PlayStation Star Wars Mortal Kombat game, which is kind of cool. I bought into it. I don't know what to say. I bought into it.
I mean, see, those references were lost on me because while I am a fan of the Star Wars movies, I'm not deep into the lore. Sure. Which is something that we're going to revisit with another thing that I was not a fan of in a minute. But I think that it just, the first part of the movie, like up to leaving Corellia, I was not on board.
I will 100% agree with that.
I didn't like the bug lady, the whole thing. Like the Empire, which gives everything KR427 names, is like, but this one creative storm guy for the Empire is like, Solo.
You're by yourself? Are you
Solo? Oh, God. I'm like, oh, my God. Who approved that? That was the war. So that put me off on a bad note. I thought that the train sequence was a pretty standard action movie sequence. It did not stand out to me as either bad or particularly great. As much as I don't care about the Kessel Run, in the sense of like I never ever wanted or needed to see the Kessel Run depicted for me on the big screen. I thought that sequence was staged and executed very well. As a matter of fact, the second act of the movie for me was my favorite part, in the sense that like I kind of was putting what I didn't like about the first part of the movie behind me. Watching the movie, that was a fun action space sequence. It was designed really well. It looked great. So when we get to that point, I was kind of like, at least somewhat on board. Sure. And then the third act for me I just sat there like that goodwill was kind of waning for me. I didn't care about, like, yes, of course the guy who tells you not to trust anyone is going to be the guy. Like, that's not a shocker. It just was so cliched, and I didn't care about Paul Bettany. I didn't care about the double cross. I didn't care about the weird garbage people that are not the bad guys but are the good guys, and you have to tie the rebellion into it. Like, all of that stuff, it just like I just felt it oozing out of my body, and I was just like, I don't care about it. I just realized I don't care about any of this.
Which is so funny, because I feel like where you dropped off is where I had accepted that I had bought in. And I was like, all right, you know what? This doesn't, because a lot of it too, I was having so much fun by that point that, no shit that it's going to be, Woody Harrelson who turns on him and everything. I guess it just didn't bother me by that point, because I was having such a good time watching the characters that, and you know what? And maybe this is just a terrible barometer of rating movies, but it was cohesive. Yeah, I saw it coming, but at least the narrative made sense, where sometimes on some of these movies, like just narratively, I'm like, why would a character do that?
I mean, it was a story. I just didn't think it was a particularly original story. Not one that thrilled me, like, oh.
Right.
Okay.
No, this is not going to be on anyone's like top 5 list of Star Wars.
It'll be on someone's top 5 list.
Somebody. And that's the whole point too. It's like, we always talk about the extremes of saying how you feel about a movie. I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just had a good time watching it. It's more watchable for me than Rogue One.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, that's part of it, is kind of we're on opposite sides of that movie too. Right. Whereas, like, I thought that I went into Rogue One, and a lot of people say, I've heard this from people, just like, you've been against Solo from the beginning, so obviously you'd made up your mind about it before you walked into the theater. I felt the exact same way. You can check the tape. I felt the exact same way, literally, about Rogue One that I felt about this movie. I don't care. I don't need to see this. I don't care. I don't need these gaps filled in for me.
Right.
But I liked it because it took that premise and gave me a different side of it, which is that the rebellion has always said that it's about sacrifice, but the sacrifice has always been these nameless characters, like that's the sacrifice. And I liked how they took this event and really drove home like what the rebellion means and what you do have to give up to beat the Empire. And I loved that they were able to tell this story where nobody makes it out alive at the end.
Sure.
And it surprised me. I thought it had a lot of deep meaning. It was way deeper than I thought it was going to be. And it was the same kind of thing. It had production problems. I was expecting the worst. I didn't think I wanted to see it, and ended up liking it. With this one, I got to the end of it, and it was just none of what the movie did made up for the fact that I still just didn't come out of this movie understanding the character of Han Solo any differently. It didn't add to his mythos at all for me. It didn't add any dimension to his character. Same with Lando. He was the same kind of cool rogue that he was in Empire and he was in Return of the Jedi. There was just more of it. And even Donald Glover, who I was really looking forward to, I didn't think that he and Alden Ehrenreich were bad necessarily, but they were fine, but they were constrained with doing, again, kind of genial impersonations of characters that we already know. And actually more so with Donald Glover for me, which surprised me. I thought Donald Glover was actually more stuck in doing an impression of Billy D. Williams than Alden Ehrenreich was stuck doing an impression of Harrison Ford, which surprised me. I thought it might be the opposite way. But I mean, Lando was fine, but I just really thought Donald Glover, who was so kind of it has so many different sides to him. He felt constrained to me into this box that the other movies had put Lando in, and that was surprising to me.
I think Lando,
and I know a lot of people will disagree with that.
Sure. Well, I think even as I like every time Lando was on, smile on my face because he's just Donald Glover's so magnetic. But I feel like I actually had a better handle of who Lando the character was before this movie, and now I'm very confused because I feel like Donald Glover's interpretation or the script's interpretation of Lando is much more, for lack of a better term, almost like flamboyant than it was almost like an SNL sketch version of Lando.
It was a bit heightened.
It was very heightened to the point where when he loses L3 and it's this dramatic moment, he's holding her, it got some laughs in my theater. And I know that that's not what that moment was supposed to be. That being said,
I mean, I never would have thought coming out of a Star Wars movie that I learned that Lando bones droids.
Or has deep-seated feelings for them? Droids?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was weird.
But you know what? It now adds this new layer of mystique, I guess, to Billy D. Williams. But again, one of my favorite moments of this whole movie, and I think that's why I was like, oh, I like that. They didn't end this as like best buds and like we're gonna go on adventures later. I love when he just strands them on that planet. He just takes off in his ship, and that's the end of that.
That's the Lando that I would know is like the Lando that would just be like, I'm going to be on my ship. And he's just like,
just peace
out. And leaves him there. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Unnecessary is the word that keeps coming to mind. It's like this movie just didn't. Not that every movie has to justify his existence, but
aren't all these unnecessary at a certain point?
At a certain point, yeah, they are. But I think that if you're going to make these, then I think you should at least add something to it. Like that's what saved Rogue One for me. Was if it were just a caper story where they stole it and then they delivered it and they all were in a bar together clinking glasses at the end, and it was I think that I would be a little more mixed, but the fact that they added some weight to it and some drama to it and actually had something to say about sacrifice instead of just showing what happened, that's what made the difference for me. And this was just, it sucks because I think that there's going to be a generation now that's going to watch these in order, where they watch this movie before they watch Star Wars. And now that introduction of Han Solo and all of these things, the Kessel Run, and these are now just callbacks, or now how he met Chewie.
Sure.
How this happened. How that happened. And I think it takes away from some of the mystery and the mystique of that character, because when you explain everything, then all of the stuff, how did they meet each other? Like all that mystery is gone, and now everything's just explained. And I think that detracts from the character. Now, that's because I have a certain perspective. I have a certain perspective of growing up with the character one way, and a lot of people say, like, oh, you have to let go of the way that you perceive a character. Why? Why do I have to change the way that I think of a character because now there are movies that are explaining away the things that I thought were cool about it? Like, I don't think that that's being rigid. I think it's like you're taking a character and demystifying it, and I don't agree with that, and I don't particularly like it. I don't think that's wrong. Some people would say it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong.
I don't think it's wrong. No, I think that's just how you feel about it. Your feelings aren't wrong. I think I've gotten to a point, and I think we talked a little bit about this when we were talking that SJU, where we talked about Star Wars in general. I think I've accepted at this point that Star Wars, this is just what it is. This is what's happening. I have a period in my life where Star Wars meant one thing to me. It means something different now. And I don't take these movies as personally or seriously anymore, for better or for worse.
Sure.
Look, this is what's happening. It's just, you're going to get this movie, take it or leave it. I chose to take it as just its own singular experience. And in those 2 hours that I watched it, I was like, not bad, and I do wonder, had I not gone in with some of the other people that had already seen it being like, I don't know about this, and the behind the scenes drama, I went in and was like, this is gonna be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And if you go in with that, you almost have no choice but to go.
It's not going to be on my list of the worst movies of the year.
Sure,
definitely
right.
not. Yeah, like I said, if you take Solo out of it, like if I even did that when kind of looking at the movie, I was like, okay, let's remove all of the Star Wars stuff, and it's like I just want to look at the movie, look at the plot, look at the characterization, just on its own. And I did that, and that's where I kind of came up with. It's just like this would be. Valerian, and not quite as bad, but in the sense of like this would just be a space adventure that had some cool visuals and stuff, and that I would immediately forget instantly everything about the second that I walked out of the theater, which I already have. I've already forgotten a lot about this movie just because there just wasn't much in it that was memorable for me. There's one thing though that I kind of alluded to when I was tweeting about the movie, and that seems to be the most divisive thing, which was that I was not a fan of Darth Maul appearing in this movie.
Okay, fair.
Because I think that now, you're taking something, and like I said, I'm not an extended lore guy, and a lot of people have attacked this viewpoint. It's just like, well, then you're obviously not a real fan because Darth Maul came back in the animated series, and I understand that, but I'm a movie guy, and for me, still, like the coolest thing about the Phantom Menace was Darth Maul, and the fact that he showed up. He was a badass villain. He got dispatched in, a really badass. Like I remember still watching that and seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi flip up and slice him in half, and you see him fall apart. And it's just like that's the most memorable part of that movie. And now he's back. And so it's like, well, okay, the one kind of mysterious cool thing one of the few mysterious cool things that I still have in these movies now is, they're probably going to bring him back for one of these other spinoffs.
Oh, that's the whole
point. They're not going to just set him up and not bring him back. But even still, even if they don't, it's like, okay, even the cool mysterious thing from episode 1 now, we're double-sided lightsaber. Oh, great. Right. Well, that's wonderful. So even that is just not a final anything. I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like going back and just like, okay, remember that thing? That's not done. Boba Fett, he's not dead. I'm not a fan of that. It just removes, again, all of the finality, the mystery from everything else in the franchise. But I understand that's just my viewpoint.
I mean, so this was one thing that actually was spoiled for me before the movie going in. And when I heard it, I was like, I don't know about that. But then when I saw it in context, I was like, you know what? It doesn't bother me all that much. Look, you're right. I have watched all the Clone Wars. I've watched Star Wars Rebels. I already knew he was back. I already knew he had the mechanical legs. They've already mined that, which is going to be interesting, by the way, because he's already had his climactic final duel with Obi-Wan in Star Wars Rebels. So if they're saving him for the Obi-Wan movie, either you retcon what happened in the cartoons or I don't know. But that being said, I was happy to see Darth Maul come back in the cartoon because, like you said, he was such a badass character who was so poorly mishandled in Phantom Menace that if I was going to give a mulligan to any dead character in Star Wars, that would be the one I would pick because he had such a cool look. We had no idea about where he came from or what he is. He got 2 speaking lines in that movie. Give him a little bit more to do. I was okay with that in the cartoon. I have no idea how they're going to do it in the movie. Clearly it's jarring for people who have not seen any of the
I knew that he was back in the extended stuff, so I knew that he had mechanical legs and stuff. But then to see it again, and like I said, they go back to the cue from Phantom Menace, and he lights up for no reason. Why does he light up? Why does he light up the double-sided lights? There's no reason for him to go. What's he doing? Is he showing off?
I think it's because like. And there were people when he first showed up, people were like, is that Darth Maul or is that the same species but a different dude? I think they literally had to be like, I don't know why they couldn't just call him out by name, but yeah, it was just like, okay, yeah, that is the guy.
But it's like you said, like he went out in Phantom Menace, like you said, he's already had a final duel with Obi-Wan Kenobi, so they've wrapped that storyline up now twice. Right. And now it's when nothing means anything, then nothing means anything. Like, that's the whole point. When nothing ever ends, then there's never any finality to anything. Then there's never any stakes. There's never any nothing.
I mean, that's where I say, like, I guess I've just accepted what Star Wars is, the synergy now between the cartoons and the movies and the theme parks and the merchandise. And there's just some things that really will bother me on principle. And there are some things where I'm just like, I'm not going to fight the current on this one.
Sure.
Did the Darth Maul thing, like, is it my favorite? Because some people are like, oh, that was the best part of the movie. I'm like, no.
That was 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. Is like, Darth Maul was the best part of the movie. Like, Darth Maul was a hologram for 30 seconds. If that's the best part of the movie, then how is that the best part of the movie? It's just literally sitting in a chair for 30 seconds. It'd be like saying Thanos was the best part of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
He's literally on screen for 2 minutes and sitting in a chair. Other than just, like, if you go to this movie because you just like seeing and hearing familiar things, then I'm not discounting that. Then you're probably going to like it a little more than most, because this is a movie that is full, like you said, deep cut lore references and characters that you like and callbacks to lines that you enjoy and all that stuff. And if that's what you want, then that movie's going to give it to you. I'm a story guy. I'm always asking, what's the bigger purpose here? What's the bigger, where does this serve in the arc? And this didn't do anything for me other than filling in gaps that I didn't need to have filled in, and that I actually think were better left not filled in. I think it was subtraction by addition. But there's a lot of people that feel differently.
I mean, I hate that saying or that phrase when people are like, well, this movie's for the fans. This movie's for the fans.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm with you. The story is fine. I had fun while watching it. It is nothing earth-shattering, but because I'm a fan of the other lore, I think that just sprinkled on some extra just fun for me. That was like, you know what? I don't hate this. I'm having a good time. I'm not angry.
Yeah.
That's how I judge things out. Am I actively angry while watching it? No, I wasn't.
I wasn't. Well, with very few exceptions, I was not actively angry.
The solo name thing, I was
solo
like,
name
oh,
thing
no.
was not. And then Darth Maul was like, oh god. The rest of it, generally, except for the parts that I was into, I was just kind of dispassionate.
Sure.
Which
It's unfortunate.
I'm not used to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just what Star Wars is going to be. It's no longer this kind of contained thing. This is going to be a big sprawling thing, and there's going to be good parts, and there's going to be bad parts, and there's going to be mediocre parts, and we're going to learn a lot more about these characters whether we want to or not. And I guess we're going to have to I'm going to have to start looking at these a lot more individually, I think, if I'm or not. Or I'm just going to be in for a lot of very blasé Star Wars movies. I don't know. It's a weird. We're like 50-50 for me on this new era of Star Wars. I've really liked two of the movies. I've had very extremely mixed feelings on one of them, and then this one I'm very kind of dispassionate about. So I don't know. We'll see where this train is taking us.
Yeah, I know this one's divisive. I don't think it's going to get to Last Jedi level of divisive, clearly, because I don't think this is going to be talked about.
It doesn't have enough.
Yeah, there's not enough legs for this one.
I don't think there is. Now, do you think we'll see Emilia Clarke and Darth Maul? And do you think, because there's now been some speculation now that it seems like they either are just leaving that open-ended and they just wanted to give fans an Easter egg, or they're doing a Fantastic Beasts thing where they are setting up their spin-off series to become its own kind of storyline. Do you think that we are going to follow this rough track where Boba Fett and Obi-Wan are sort of in this contemporary time period and they interconnect, or do you think we're sort of going to be in little pods independently?
I feel like you don't drop that. First of all, you don't keep Emilia Clarke alive.
To not use her again?
To not use her again, because what if she had died at the end of that movie, then I could totally be like, now I understand why Han is so closed off and guarded by the time we get to him. But they didn't, which means there's got to be more to this. And I don't think you drop Darth Maul if there's not more to it. Do I want Obi-Wan and Boba Fett to all link up? Kind of not, because I was hoping the whole point of these spin-off movies were like, what have we not seen yet? But I don't think that's where they're going. It sounds like it probably will be connected. But you know what? I really liked Emilia Clarke in this movie. I thought her performance was great. I actually bought the chemistry between her and Han Solo.
They had good chemistry.
Yeah.
And Alden Ehrenreich, I thought was, like I said, he was fine.
As soon as I stopped trying to take every line he said and in my head be like, now, how would Harrison Ford say it?
Right.
Because I did that for the first 10, 15 minutes. And then I was like, I got to stop doing this.
You have to stop doing it and just look at it on its own. It's all right. He's charismatic.
Yeah.
I feel like he got the short end of the stick with all this lead up going into it. I think a lot of people were kind of giving him a hard time.
Yeah, I mean, they were saying like we have to bring in an acting coach, and it's just not working. It's like there was never a time where I was just like, ooh, woof, what were they thinking with his acting? It was exactly what the script called for. It's Star Wars. Go back with those rose-colored glasses and tell me there's not some pretty cheesy acting in those originals too.
I kind of wish Tandy Newton and Woody Harrelson had switched places because I thought she was way more interesting, but that's, what are you going to do?
They abandoned that a little too quickly for me, but
yeah, I don't know why they like Tandy Newton when she was gone. I was like, that's it? That's all you're going to use Tandy Newton for? Is like,
well, he grieved for one scene.
He grieved for a couple of scenes. I will say this is the kind of movie I half expected when Woody Harrelson was dying on the sand to be like, see, kid, that's why you always shoot first.
I was waiting for it too. I was like, oh, please don't say
that would have been the nail in the coffin for me. Billy, we could talk about this forever, but and we will.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is fun. I like a discourse.
Yeah.
You liked it more than I did. I didn't like it as much as you did. That's all right.
You're not wrong, Dan.
And you're not wrong, Billy.
There you go.
And most of you aren't wrong, unless you're telling us we're wrong.
Then you're wrong.
Then you're wrong. But then does that make us? I don't know. That's a whole circular piece of logic that I can't get into. Thank you so much for watching our spoiler review of Solo, and be sure to stay tuned here to Screen Junkies News, not only for Star Wars news, but also coming up after the Memorial Day break on Tuesday, we'll be breaking down the box office, and we are entering June. Incredibles 2, Jurassic World, so many big summer movies still ahead of us. You can catch it all right here on Screen Junkies News. Thanks for watching.